Hey everybody, welcome back for Hammers and Dice. It has been a little while since our last podcast. We got most of the gang here today. With me are Reed, Esteban, John. Tonight we're going to be discussing Las Vegas Open and some of the new restrictions that are going to be for the 3K lists this year, and also some of the Zone Mortalis stuff, and kind of what to expect with that and the reasoning that went into that decision. Since Reed is the tournament organizer, he'll give us his insight into that, and we'll be able to ask him some questions about it as well. But before we dive into it, there haven't really been any new releases since our last recording, but there has been a night for 40K, which maybe we'll get some 30K rules for that.
Right. The guys over here were saying that, I was the one who mentioned that we should probably talk about it because I'm excited to get something else for the nights. Every night that comes out helps fill out their roster in a really nice way. And this is the nice in between the Arbiter and the normal night. But John was correct in saying that, the Preceptor and Dominus never made it to, they made it to 30K for a brief moment and then never made it into 2.0/3.0. So we can fingers crossed with it though.
Yeah. I guess it depends on what the lore they write for it is. If it's one of those things that's like, it's a newer night that's a hybrid,
or it's always been there.
So we'll see about that. And then also what I think is actually really exciting is they've been dropping pages from the Black Books. They started with the Night Lords and the Thrombus Crusade. And the latest drop was Dark Angels, right? Or
Blood Angels.
Blood Angels. It is Dark Angels than Blood Angels.
Yeah. So
the Black Books are literally some of the best lore for all of Warhammer.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
And getting the Legion stuff is awesome. I don't know. Do you guys have a favorite one that you're looking forward to out of the Legions to be dropped?
I mean,
I already got the promise, so I'm happy.
I have the Black Book, so
for a new fan who's coming into the hobby, if there's one that stood out to you, I can mention in particular the Salamanders have one about Unification War, and they're in these kind of underground it's called Tempest Galleries, and they basically just go through and fight these old knight robots underneath a volcano, and 10,000 of them go in and 200 come out. I don't remember how many exactly, but it's a pretty tight story.
My first answer would be the Blood Angels, because I think Anuj, who wrote the Blood Angels lore for Book 9, really, I mean, it wasn't just him, but the Revenant Legion stuff and how the Legion was super different before Sanguinius was discovered. I think that's some really cool lore, so I'm glad they released that. But as for Legions that haven't come out yet, I actually think the Raven Guard one would be super interesting, since there's a lot of 40K chapters that kind of descend from Terran Raven Guard who were just sent off into deep space because Corax didn't like them, and I think that lore is pretty interesting, where you see the divide between the old Terran Legion and the new Legion because Corax didn't like the old Terran Raven Guard. So
yeah, I love that lore.
Yeah, that'd be a kind of cool lore for people's projects and stuff.
Totally. It's pretty singular lore also in what happened at the Heresy. I can't really put a finger on any other Primarch that was all right, guys, I just don't like you, go away. I'm sure there were. Don't misquote me in that. I know it happened, but they're the one that really had a big chunk of them.
And he was also one of the few Primarchs who hated Horus before the Heresy.
Yeah,
he was writing on the wall. It was this guy's a dick. So you gotta give him props for that. Everybody else was shocked, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Horus probably would have done that. Fuck him."
You've given me a reason. Here we go.
He was there brooding in the corner. He's like, told you so, Dad.
But anyways,
classic emo look.
Let's dive right into it. So Reed, this is your second, or this will be your third time running LVO. Yep. So why don't you talk to us a bit about how you came to the decision to add Lords of War for the 3K lists, and just kind of give us a little bit of story into what's going on with LVO this year.
Cool. Thank you, Randy. And thank you guys for letting me talk about it tonight. Yes, this is going to be my third LVO that I've run, but I think it is my 6th or 7th that I've actually attended. I really love this event out of the years that I've been on the West Coast and able to attend. So with all of that said, it's been kind of a long movement in trying to figure out how to redefine LVO as far as the heresy scene. And my push, as always, has been for more narrative-driven storytelling. And previously, last year in October, we played at Beta Garmin 3, where we did the forces of Sanguinius and the expeditionary force retribution fleet. I don't remember exactly what the terminology is between the two of them. Go out from Terra. It's the Khan and Sanguinius trying to fight Horus and hold them at Beta Garmin. With the conclusion of October, the Loyalists were easily able to hold the planet and reinforce it at this point. And so we are now moving on to Beta Garmin 2, which is where the Titan death happens. And with that, and GW has been really serendipitous in that Forge World has been, Games Workshop has been pushing out Lords of War lately. So obviously the Fellblade, the Glaive, and if fingers crossed, maybe a Falchion or a Plastic Warhound, if anyone can dream about it. And of course, it goes without mentioning the Plastic Thunderhawk if it ever, magically occurs. But I'm glad I got at least a laugh out of Esteban for that one.
It's always on the list. It's
always is on the list. Like I feel like I've seen that in this hobby for 10 years now almost. But all kidding aside, I think it is a really great time for Heresy at those kind of units to be coming out, and we're having some conversation back and forth, but myself and the planning team who I've got to help me this year, we have been discussing the idea of requiring the Lord of War to be taken. There's been some discussion right now as far as how the community is taking it. We just announced this a couple days ago. And with that, we're trying to find that sweet spot of, obviously we don't want to exclude anyone who wants to come and play Heresy with us. But at the same time, we are trying to strike that balance of at this point in time, the big guns are out. This is the time to deploy them. And, with everything that you have, throw it across the table at your opponent. So we want to encourage that type of play style. And especially right now, because I don't know if, not to get too far ahead of ourselves right here when talking about Lords of War, but the Warhound Titan has been kind of the boogeyman of Horus Heresy for a long time, and kind of rightfully so. Titans were powerful in the first editions, and there was very few things that could reliably take them on. But right now, I think they're actually at a really sweet spot of points versus what you get out of them. Them starting at BS3 is a huge deal, with obviously the ability to rank up, but that will take you over the 25% mark for most army list. So yeah, guys, there's not a lot else to include on that right now, but it's just the idea that we are trying to add Lord of Wars with the intention that this is the time where all forces are coming to bear, and hopefully at the end of the weekend we're going to run a Sunday event, which is always our Apocalypse game. My encouragement is that everyone who brings a Lord of War and more Lords of War, everything that is basically, so somebody could bring, 4 or 5 Titans themselves if they wanted to, but we have our Apocalypse battle at the end of the weekend with everyone's big stuff, and that would play out as the Titan death in our small sector. So happy to pass it over and hear thoughts from anyone, and because you guys are a part of the community as well, and what you guys think.
Well, we should mention, because you said this as well, if you really don't want to bring a Lord of War, there's the Zone Mortalis option as well.
Yes, thank you, Randy. So this year we're definitely confirming that we're going to have, so in October, Zone Mortalis rules were not out. So we were having this debate back and forth of do we try to put together some scrapped up rules that from second edition that can make do for LVO, but we said we have too much on our plate already with just having to understand third edition, that we just kind of put Zone Mortalis to the side. I have confirmed right now 8 boards. I'm hoping to get more of them. But these are nice, well done Zone Mortalis boards. And so with that in mind, we should have a division of people that are able to play a game consistently throughout the weekend, throughout our 4 rounds, and potentially into Sunday if they choose to. So we're encouraging people to bring Zone Mortalis list. These should be 1,500 points, so half of what your normal game would be. And with that in mind, you should be able to play 2 games during the round timing. So you can kind of hit more variety in your games and your opponents if you so wish. We're trying to encourage everyone to play in the style that they want. And once again, there has been a little bit of pushback so far about the idea of how Lords of War impact people's ideal 3,000 point list that they've already come up with. But, we'll work through that as a community, as we always do.
Yeah, I think whenever you have up to 100+ people from different communities coming together, you have very different expectations, or everybody has different expectations of what they want the event to be, right? And I think no matter what you decide you want to do, there's always going to be a couple people who are like, well, I don't like that. I don't want to do it that way. So
Yeah,
you know,
and I've gotten that before.
yeah, but you know, from my perspective, I can understand people who are like, oh, that's not, you know, what I would want to see. But when you're going to a narrative event, part of going to that narrative event is accepting the immersion of it and being like, we're here as a community to recreate this battle, to recreate this moment. And you could get a Typhon, you could get a Cerberus. You don't necessarily need to buy a gigantic Warhound Titan. You don't need to buy a Knight. You know, there are cheaper options that are in plastic these days. You know, your Typhon or Cerberus is basically a Spartan body with a big gun on it. So those are, you know, relatively reasonable options that you can include in your lists that play like normal tanks. They're not necessarily going to hugely alter your play style. And I think it's a nice way to create something that you're not going to see in your average game at your local shop, right?
Right.
Which I think is what I would think you would want to go to something like LVO, is to like experience something different, a different style of play. And you know, it's not the kind of play you would usually be doing, which I think is nice.
And
Right.
not only that, if you don't mind me just elaborating one quick second, I mentioned it on Sunday. I think that's actually really the secret. One of the best days people will say is when they come to LVO and they get to see the Sunday kind of big brawl that we always have. The hard part is playing a game that large when everyone wants to bring every single toy they have down to their tactical marines. Tactical Marines don't end up doing a whole lot in those games except get blown off the table by the Warlord Titans. So with everyone having a Lord of War, it encourages everyone to play on a Sunday kind of mega event where, you know, we really get that spectacle look at it and we actually get to play the game out, which I think is a fun addition. So sorry, I just wanted to include that part in there as well, because I think that is a big draw for myself.
So I guess I'll do a spicy take. People who play Heresy think that, and I think we addressed this before with our narrative versus competitive, whatever, but there's this idea that all narrative means is just chill competitive play. It's like, no. A narrative play is like hardcore. We're going to follow the story, you know? And I think it's Beta Garmin, right? Freaking giant Titan battle. So I think having that requirement, that's pushing for the narrative, right? So I think that's a great requirement in yeah, like Heresy events are supposed to be these big kind of set pieces that are part of this large story, not just like three match play play games that are, oh, it's narrative, so it's chill. We're not going to bring our super meta lists. It's like, no. Like, I actually like that there's this kind of requirement because I think it makes of a more, I think it's a cooler event because you have this story where, you know, this planet we're fighting over or system was known for having giant Titan battles. So we're going to increase the amount of super heavy vehicles that people bring to fit the narrative. And I think that's dope. And yeah, I think that's more narrative than, oh, we're gonna play like a tournament system, except there's gonna be a side story attached, and you know, people are gonna be not as cheesy with their lists. Like that's not narrative. That like real narrative is restrictions, to be honest. And actually, an example I remember is Lord of the Rings miniatures game. So they have narrative missions in there, and those missions, they don't have points systems. They have these lists of things you have to bring to play this mission. So if you're like playing Pelennor Fields, you have to take like 6 Mumak and like 60 Hadradrim and like 60 Gondor Warriors. Like there's no like point systems. Like no, you have to take these specific units because that's what a narrative kind of mission should be like, right? So yeah, I mean, I don't think Reed should in future LVO should tell people, hey, you need like 100 TAC Marines and all that. But I think having that requirement to simulate the feel of Titan death is super cool.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
In terms of gameplay, are you creating custom missions that are going to kind of revolve around the Lords of War?
I can talk to you guys a little bit about it. So right now, I would assume that we have done our kind of preliminary meeting right now where we kind of set our ground rules, and we still have about 7 months until the event, so we have not done any movement on actually laying out missions. But I will talk about how we did talk about mission structure, and I think that's a really valuable thing for us to discuss because yes, I'd love to put in missions that are around the Lords of War and help to encourage that. I think the engine mission what are they called?
The
Somebody
engine
say
kill?
the engine kill missions from the Titan book are pretty awesome. I don't know if they work as well when there are two Lords of War on the field opposing each other, where those ones encourage you to be firing off the board to gain points, and then for the person without the Titan to try to kill it. We did discuss that there is something kind of brilliant about coming to LVO where you don't have a lot of time in your busy life to play a mini game, so it's the balance of how complex do we make it. On the first day, we are going to do kind of more stock standard mission books of like, all right, everyone, you're going to play mission 1 now. Okay, now it's time for mission 2 in the second round. On day 2, this will be the Saturday, we will be doing a different style format where we can control a lot more of the boards that we're bringing to LVO this year. And with that, we are going to try to have missions that are paired to the board. And I got to give a shout out to the Everyday 30K guys. They have put on some amazing events. I got to go to one of them last year. I talked about it on our podcast, and they're up in San Jose. And while I was there at this event, every single board they had a specific mission tailored to this one. So, you know, a train board, and so you have to get supplies that are coming off the train. I played one that I was playing my salamanders as always. So I had a mission where every time you touch a building, it burns. Like you're trying to set off buildings to burn and burn out the enemy. And I just remember that being super thematic and cool. So we want to try to emulate that. So Randy, a long-winded way of kind of answering your question as a yes, that we're trying to plan around the Lord of Wars, but we don't have specifics yet.
For instance, you know, a lot of missions have the rule where you get victory points for killing a Lord of War. Are you going to keep that or remove that? You thinking?
Truthfully, I might double it. I think the idea of encouraging Lord of War violence is a bonus in this instance, because everyone's going to have one. So then if you kind of almost make it twice as valuable in that way,
it's almost like Kill the Warlord, where it's like,
in a way,
you both got them. You're incentivizing going after each other's Lords of War.
And I think that in turn might encourage you to play either taller with your Lord of War, or maybe play. So like, and when I say that, don't take a Typhon because it might get blown up fairly easily. Take a Warhound because it has more, rigmarole that you have to go through before you can destroy it. But then potentially it's a higher profile, and that might affect which boards you want to play on. I don't know. I think it's just, I haven't been to an event where everyone like had to bring a Lord of War, so I think it's a fun idea.
I do have a question actually regarding that. So that rule, the what is it called? Not Giant Slayer. Is it called Giant Slayer?
Something like that. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it also references Primarchs. Do you consider someone who brings a Primarch to have brought a Lord of War? Because they're in the points value there.
So yes, I hear you on that. So actually what we did last year, so in every LVO that I've been to previously, we never allowed named characters. There is actually a specific amount of named characters who have models that are in the Beta Garmin system. And so last year in October, we allowed those characters, kind of those persona dramatis that would be at the beginning of the Siege of Terra books or something like that, the people that are kind of really involved in that moment. So that would include Sanguinius, the Khan, Horus is there. Which, at that point, you probably just played Horus Ascended, more likely. And then we included Lorgar as well, because Lorgar is not technically in Beta Garmin, but he's fairly close by, because when, not to spoil too much, but when Horus gets wounded on Beta Garmin, Lorgar is like right there and like, hey, how can I help? So I kind of did a little fudging with it to make sure that, the traders had 2 Primarchs they could bring. Esteban, to answer your question, there are Primarchs around at this point in time. There are specifically 4 that we're going to allow at this event. If you play those, I'm encouraging people to bring them on the side. And if you're playing against somebody who also has one, then you can play it. Trying to bring a Primarch in a 3K game just changes things really significantly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's a tough thing to allow someone to bring a Primarch without their opponent knowing in advance about it. I'd say that's a tough thing for someone to have to swallow and just show up and like, oh, hey, here, your opponent has a Primarch, deal with it,
Okay. So I mean, on that note, then, do you think a Primarch has more presence than say a Lord of War, especially like something say like a Warhound Titan, because I feel like a Warhound is more impactful than say Sanguinius. Although that might just be a personal opinion because I like turbo lasers.
Maybe. But I think a Warhound, once again, is like, Randy, when we played, I saw your Warhound across the table anywhere I was, and I could shoot it with anything. I don't know. It's kind of a personal preference more than anything, I would say, at this moment. Hey, in a year or so, we're going to be at Terra, and then everyone can play any Primarch they want, basically.
Yeah, I mean, to Reed's point, I do think because both players are bringing a Lord of War, and you have that expectation. So in building your army lists, you can probably say like, okay, like I need more anti-tank in my list. There's going to be something big across the table. That's something that you're preparing for. Versus if you don't know that you're necessarily playing against a Primarch, it's like, do you need a lot of combat hitting stuff in your list? That's something that you're building your list for potentially. It also depends on the mission. There's certain missions where having a Primarch would be hugely advantageous versus the Lord of War.
I will put out the call. I want to do some of the cinematic Apex battles that were mentioned in second edition. In particular, there's a really great one of the Khan versus Horus. Last year I had somebody who was going to bring like their 8,000 points of Sons of Horus with Horus Ascended and 40 just there. I'm making up the numbers once again. But I just couldn't find somebody who was bringing White Scars who wanted to bring the Khan and play with enough points. So if there's a White Scar player out there or one that encourage them to come to LVO and bring their Khan.
Gotta bring Beto out from retirement.
I know, Beto, please. Save me.
Do you guys have anything more you want to add about that, or should we move on to?
There was a question asked about why not just increase points value so people don't have to rewrite their list and can just throw in a 4-4. I don't know if you want to discuss that again here, since you've already answered it on the Discord.
I mean, I can talk about it a little bit. So, Esteban, you were cutting out there a little bit for me, and I want to confirm. It's just the idea of everyone just gets to bring their normal 3K list and then also throw in a Lord of War. I'm interested in it as well. Personally, when I go to LVO, I ended up bringing all of whatever army I'm bringing anyways, I feel like. Mainly for the Apocalypse game at the end of the weekend. But there have been comments before where people that travel extensively to get to these things have such a limited amount of space that they can bring. They can bring one of those travel cases, you know what I mean, where they can pack it to the gills with everything they need. 3,000 is the sweet spot that we have found. Any more than that is a hard sell. I think what I'd encourage people is I don't think we're going to be doing Lords of War next year as well. I don't really see any kind of reason to do that. So if people are really that unhappy with the Lords of War, I would encourage them probably to play Zone Mortalis right now in this coming LVO, which once again should be really awesome. But Lord of War mainly for the narrative purpose. I think that's what we kind of discussed. Bumping it up to that next points kind of threshold is kind of a large ask from what I've heard from a lot of the community. People were talking about doing sideboards originally last year when I started taking on the reins for this. Some people love that idea. I love that idea. But just some people can't travel with the extra things. An extra 1,000 points, 6 people. I hope that answers you, what you're thinking.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely answers that. Again, I was just kind of echoing what I was seeing from some of the chat groups.
Yeah. And if you're interested, you can always join us on the Discord. We're happy to have anyone and everyone who wants to talk heresy with us. We'll put a link in the description if that's cool.
Sure. Let's pivot slightly and let's talk, because we're talking about Lords of War. Let's actually talk about Lords of War. So in this edition, a Lord of War is a type of unit denoted by the giant tank symbol in the book, and it is an additional detachment. You can take up to one of them, and the detachment itself actually includes 2 slots, but you are limited to a 25% max for Lord of War. So in 3,000 points, that means you can max take 750 points of Lords of War. I don't think that there's any Lords of War cheap enough that you could do 2 of them for 750 points.
Whoa, there is actually.
Is it a Solar Ox tank or something?
Actually, it's actually a fairly extensive list here. Mostly the Solar Ox and Militia, or I think it's just Solar Ox actually, but there's
the Militia can take like a bunch of Bane blades.
Yes. I was gonna say there's the I literally had it up. Oh, here it is. Like the Marauder Destroyer, the flyer. It's only 245 points. You could run a pair of them
That's a
and
Lord
still
of
have
War.
room to spare. Yeah, the Marauder Destroyer is a Lord of War. And that's such an old Forge World model. I'd be surprised if anyone did actually have one and decided to bring one. That extra bonus points if you do.
So if,
But,
if you're looking into obscure Solar Ox tanks, you can.
No, yes, exactly. The
Key.
Praetor. Do you guys remember the Praetor armored assault
with the
launcher?
giant missile launcher. Yep.
Yeah, only 300 points. You can run a pair of them. A pair of Blast 7, Barrage 2, Suppressive 2 giant missile launchers. put one in each corner and laugh as you suppress your opponent's army.
I mean, so actually, the good thing about that is if you're a Legion player and you want to take an obscure random Solar Auxiliary tank, you can. So the one of the things that it says with Lord of War detachments is they can be from any faction. So they don't have to be from your normal faction. You don't have to take an extra allied detachment or anything with it. You can learn. It's like they just requisitioned the Lord of War from whatever place. So if you're taking Solar Ox, but you happen to have a Cerberus and you want to throw that in, you can do that. If you're taking a Legion list and you want to throw in a Baneblade, you can do that. So it allows you, if you have a 3K Legion list and you don't want to buy a brand new Lord of War, but you have a Solar Ox Lord of War, you can throw that in. So hopefully that for people who don't want to build and paint a new Lord of War, if you already have one for a different list, it's easy enough to throw that in. The other thing I was going to say is that Lord of War detachments don't take up one of your command slots, so you don't have to get an extra Centurion or whatever to get an extra slot. It's basically a free add-on to your list. Of the different types of Lords of War, there's in the Legion books, there's the Cerberus, the Typhon, the Glaive, the Fellblade, the Falchion, and then you get the big ones. Then you have the Thunderhawk, the Sokar Stormbird, the Mastodon. So a good chunk of these are in plastic now. So I got a Fellblade. It's actually sitting in a box. So maybe this will be my inspiration to finally break it out and paint it up into the Legion colors.
Do it, Randy. What color are you gonna make it again? Or what Legion?
I was considering my Emperor's Children. I'm not 100% on that yet, but that's what my kind of intention was when I got it. But we'll see. But I also have my Warhound that I've only played a couple times, so it might be an incentive to break him out. Although I'm a little scared of driving to Vegas with that thing in tow. And
I believe in you, Randy.
It's surviving.
People bring their warlords. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine.
So, some people are braver than I am. I'm not ashamed to admit it. There are people in the world who are braver souls than I.
I was gonna say, you just had a kid, Randy. You have extra car seat, I'm sure. That's your carrier right there.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, I mean the Warhound probably would fit nicely in the car seat. Yeah, and then so those are the Legion tanks, and obviously there's Titans. One thing I actually would say, so the Warhound base value, 750 points, is exactly 25%. But you can't, as Reed mentioned earlier, you can't give it any buffs. So right now it's base ballistic skill 3. If you had a larger point game, you can buff it up, do weapon skill 4 or 5. You can't do that. So if you bring a Warhound, there's nothing. The gun options are all free, so you can pick whatever guns you want. But you can't buff it up beyond that. One thing I would say, having played one game with Titan this edition, it adds more complexity to the gameplay. So, and Reed, I'll be curious on your thoughts on this. My opinion would actually be maybe don't bring a Titan unless you're very confident in the rules and have played with it a few times, because otherwise you're going to be spending a lot of time looking at your book and being like, okay, what happens now? What happens now? What happens now? And then when the Titan dies, literally every unit on the board gets hit from its explosion, which takes a long time in a 3K game, depending on how many units are still alive when it explodes. So that was kind of my takeaway from our game, which it's fun. It's very cool. It's it does feel more narrative and themey. But because of that, there's a little bit more rules lawyering that goes into playing with a Titan. So my 2 cents on that would be, if you aren't used to playing with Titans in this edition, I would suggest not bringing a Titan.
Or just get a couple of practice games in, is what I would do.
I mean, you could do that.
That's an
what I'm saying.
opportunity. Absolutely. Randy, you're right. There are more rules to follow with it. But actually, I think out of models that have gone from 1st to 3rd edition, this has been the glow up of a century for the Titans. And like, I hope they get more eventually, but in a lot of ways, we got different types of level of Titan pilots, which is incredible. We got some bespoke rules for it getting destroyed, which is a really fun mechanic system. So I played with two Venators, Sakaran Venators that were attacking Randy's Warhound and a Falchion, and like quickly we were doing damage to it, but I was not able to get it up on the scale enough where it blew up. Now eventually I did, and it blew up big time and killed like everything, which was awesome. I think it was a really cool dynamic game because of it. Yes, it requires a little bit more kind of knowledge going into it, but
yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not fun. Like, it's definitely fun.
I'm getting a Warhound for it.
You know, on a heavy gameplay weekend with a lot going on. And I don't know, on that day, is this a 3K game or is it 2?
It's 2.
So yeah, that's the thing. I'm like,
3K games.
You're trying to get through your games a little bit on the quicker side, it's just gonna slow things down a little bit just by the nature of it. I think. So it's just something to be aware of going into it.
Know your rules and.
Well, yeah, I mean, know your rules, but not everybody knows the rules.
Well, then you should. Then it is your responsibility to know your rules before going to a big event. is my statement there. Don't make the event your first time.
I mean, that's my point. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, if you're like, I have to bring my work. Like, if you're like, oh, I've had this Warhound sitting in a box for 6 years. This is my excuse to paint it and bring it out. Great, but like, learn the fucking rules before you come. Don't just like finish building and painting it the night before and show up with it, because you and your opponent are gonna have a lot of time.
Yeah, don't build it the week before, please, for the love of God. I don't want to hear your story about it. But I will say, while we're talking about people with Titans in boxes, John, if you'd like to donate a Reaver to someone, I will bring an entire list around them, because I do think the Reaver can still work in the 3K game style format, taking the Titan specific detachment.
Reaver staying in the box. Isn't it?
You crush my dreams every time. It's okay though.
You
Okay.
reset the clock, Reed. Every
You're
time
gonna
it's
ask me.
mentioned, the clock resets for
We're
him.
gonna ask next episode.
You know,
Listen, I have to ask if it's going to get built, and I have to ask if the Salamander Praetors are coming. That is just a part of my deal.
Yeah, that's a game I'm willing to play, especially.
But if you're not willing to spend the money on a Warhound or Titan, which is completely reasonable, I actually think of the cheaper Lord of War options, I really like the Typhon. The Typhon is a good anti-tank platform.
Yeah,
It's really strong.
And the Fellblade seems to be in a good spot right now as well.
Yeah, the Fellblade is a little weird, because I feel like it's one of those things that's a jack of all trades, a master of none, right? It's got all of its different weapons are good at taking out different things. So like, if you're targeting a tank, not all of your guns are going to be as effective. If you're targeting, a squad, like an elite squad, not all of your guns are going to be as effective. So it's one of those tanks where it's kind of good if you're going for an all-around tank and you're not sure what you're going to face. But with an event like this, like, you don't know what kind of you're coming up against. That might not be a bad thing to have something that can deal with a bunch of different threats. Just, it's not, a lot of tanks are like, this is my anti-tank tank, or this is my anti-infantry tank. Like, the Fellblade, I think, from my perspective, is like, I can do a little bit of everything. It's just not going to be as effective as some other things that would have been completely anti-tank or anti-infantry.
I think something that Feldblade has going for it is if you just use it as a status machine, because I think 4 of its guns give some status effect. So if you fire that all, I think they could all fire different targets because it's a Lord of War. So yeah, just throwing your heavy bolters to different targets, and then your main cannon, then your demolisher cannon for some section could be a good use. But because I agree with Randy, it's really a generalist tank and not really the best at kind of one job compared to like the Falchion or the Glaive.
And then Knights, I feel like Knights this edition are in a bit of a weird place from my perspective. I've mentioned this in our group before. They lost their kind of like Knight subtype this edition. So they have some special rules still, but a lot of things that made them unique are gone now. So for instance, if you charge a Knight, you're hitting its rear armor. Even a Knight that's like a close combat Knight, you're hitting its rear armor in combat, which I don't understand. Something to be aware of if that's something that you're going for. I still think they're really good shooting platforms. And I think, yeah, if you're taking like a knight list and you got a few knights and armigers, the combination of all of them together has the potential to be very impressive. But just a single knight on the board is not necessarily like know its limitations, right? It's not the same as bringing a warhound, you know. It potentially have some trouble.
You know, I actually kind of share that sentiment because I've been slowly trying to build up knights for third edition since the rules came out, and on paper, a single knight is really a liability. It feels like, unless you're like specifically building it with a task in mind, like say double battle cannon, so you can toss out a bunch of pie plates, or if you're running double Avenger cannon, so you can just throw out suppressive statuses. But when you do bring a whole list of knights, and that's going to be, you know, 3 to 4 big knights and, you know, 8, 10 armigers, that is a really tough list to fight against because it's essentially immune to small arms. So you're really relying on close combat, as you were saying earlier, and high strength weapons, which are a bit in a weird position now, I think, against knights, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And then from the other side of it, when you're facing a Lord of War, a lot of times you're dealing with AV13, AV14. You want to be and it's not just Lord of War. I mean, you're seeing a lot of Land Raiders, a lot of Spartans these days because it's really hard to take out AV14 tanks, especially when someone's got, you know, Forge Lord sitting behind their tank ready to heal it up every turn. So the one thing I would suggest is taking something that can deal with the tech marines and the Forge Lords, you know, a seeker squad or sniper squad, something that can potentially snipe those guys out so that they're not erasing the damage you do every turn. And
or
then,
bring a big pie plate that can just hit it anyways, hit the tank and it.
yeah, although I usually hide mine in a troop squad, so, you know, even if you do that, I can still throw the wounds onto something else. But
Just bring a bigger pie plate.
the other thing is, you know, high strength weapons. The rapier, the laser destroyer, I think is strength 10, right, John?
Yep.
The Vindicator, both its options are great. I think its gun is like strength 12.
I think, yeah.
Which at its, you know, if you stand still, it's damage 6, which is gonna certainly destroy almost any tank that's not a super heavy, and it's gonna put some serious damage into super heavy tanks. I mean, some of the super heavies are like 18 plus hull points, but some of them are 12. So if your opponent's bringing a Typhon, 2 Vindicators that stand still could basically take it out in one round of shooting if they're lucky. So that's something to be aware of. But I mean, another effective strategy, we were kind of talking about this on our Discord earlier this week, is it can be an effective strategy to just kind of ignore it. If your opponent has one big tank, their damage output isn't necessarily worth their points. Where they get their value out of it, from my perspective, is by soaking up incoming fire and distracting from other units on the table. There's been plenty of games where I just ignore AV14 and just focus on the units that are scoring. And I think that works very well. So if you're designing a list that's more combat focused, not bringing as much anti-tank, I think that's a perfectly reasonable way to go as well.
Just to toss on the side of that, I think that just to remind folks who are listening in, this is a very generalist statement from you regarding normal play. If we're talking about going to LVO, you know, if both players are bringing a Lord of War, I think that changes that dynamic. I don't think you can play the ignore game because you both have so many points involved in your Lords of War, anywhere from, you know, 400 to 650 points, I think, typical for most of the range of Lords of War we expect to see.
True, but I do think, I mean, it depends which Lord of War you're bringing, because not all Lords of War are effective anti-tank or as effective anti-tank. So if you're bringing a glaive, it's not really a tank killer. So that would be why I'd like, if in that instance, I'm not shooting the glaive at your, you know, Warhound. I would probably ignore it in that situation.
Well,
yeah,
then at that point in time, you could maybe make the argument of like, how many points do you make it? How valuable does it become? And that's what comes with like kind of custom missions and along with the theme. So we'll definitely be keeping that in mind as well.
Yeah, that's why I kind of like the idea that Reed brought up, that Lords of War give more VPs when you kill them, because I agree with Randy. I think the most effective way to deal with Lord of War is to kind of just play around it. Because the thing is with Lords of War, right? And I want to explain the logic a bit there, is if you're attacking a Lord of War, because you can't really disable it or make it weaker just by giving it more wounds, even in past editions, there's no like weapon destroyed or whatever. You can't really status them as easily, I believe, because you can't really glance them. So you need to kill them to stop them from doing anything. So if you're just spending time throwing chip damage at it and you don't kill it, you might as well be throwing that damage at things that you can actually kill, like smaller vehicles or infantry. Because if you don't kill the Lord of War at the end of the game, and the units that tried to kill it were kind of just wasting their time. Like it's the same if they didn't do anything, right? So yeah, I think having incentives to kill the Lord of War would be nice, actually.
I mean, yeah, what I've been saying this edition is, a Lord of War or a tank with one hull point left is just as effective as a tank that has full hull points. It's not like last edition, like John was saying, where you're knocking its guns out. It's still going to be at full effectiveness. And I think, like what we were saying with glances, I think with super heavies, they just take a whole point from a glance. They don't get status. So there's nothing you can really do to reduce, except for shock, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think shock still converts statuses to tanks, but everything else, it just takes a whole point. So there's very little you can do to reduce the effectiveness of that tank short of fully destroying it.
Right.
Does anyone have a favorite Lord of War?
Ooh, I do.
Please, Esteban.
All right, so I was actually looking through all the rules, trying to figure out what's a good unit, and I popped open the Mechanicum book trying to see what the Ordnantes Eleanors do. I forgot they're not in there anymore, but I did find the Brass Scorpion again.
Oh, the Brass Scorpion is so good.
It is so good. I was rereading the rules just right before this our little call, and it's like, it's actually really good. It's really good. It's got Eternal Warrior 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's some BS. We're Lord of War.
It's great.
It's so hard to kill. It's got so much damage output. I think the Brass Scorpion is, for its points, the best Lord of War.
Absolutely, yeah. And the funny thing is that it even has support unit 1. This means it can still be on an objective and cap it, unlike the rest of the Lords of War for the most part, which is like kind of insane.
If you're taking it with a mech list, you're obviously going to have a lot of things around it that can heal it up. So like if you're not destroying that thing in one turn, it's coming back full health the next turn,
and it's going to make you regret.
And that's the thing, though. It's toughness 8.
But again,
toughness
like
8.
Like if you're coming up against a Brass Scorpion, unless you can take that thing out in one turn, you just ignore it.
Yeah.
And you run from it because it is, it just keeps coming.
I was gonna say that this is making me reconsider everything as far as building lists, because I was originally thinking of bringing a Fellblade and maybe playing Sons of Horus, but now I want to play mech and bring a Brass Scorpion just because I expect to see other Brass Scorpions. But it's trader only, so it's like I'm not.
Your Sons of Horus.
All right.
Yeah. Hey, if you need to borrow some Mechanicum, hit me up.
Oh no, thank you. I think the main problem is actually building a Brass Scorpion, because I'd have to scratch build one, because there's no more Forge World kit, right? It's been out of production for like a couple years.
I thought there was one. Is it gone now?
Is it still available?
I mean,
I must be looking in the wrong place then.
It's probably as expensive as fuck.
Yeah, it's like a Greater Brass Scorpion, $335.
$335.
I'm not looking at the site right. I need to go check my Warhammer site Kung Fu.
I think going back to Reed's question, I really, really like the glaive. I actually have one built. I should probably paint that up because it's already built. But I think it epitomized, because I remember when it came out, it epitomized the cool thing about Heresy, which is it had things that weren't important in 40k. So, you had essentially the Baneblade equivalent, which is the Fellblade, but it was a Space Marine Baneblade with a giant Volkite, and Volkite's already super 30k. So you had this giant Baneblade, Space Marine Baneblade with a Volkite cannon, and that was super cool. I do miss its rules where in past editions you would draw a line to your target and anything caught in between would get hits. Now it's just like
was so cool.
Yeah, that rule was super cool. I don't know why they
the best rule.
Yeah, I think if it hit vehicles, it did a lot of hits to it. So yeah, I really like the glaive. I think it's still pretty solid. Honestly, it's not the best. I mean, none of the Lords of War are super amazing, but I think it's because it has an AP3 Volkite gun, right? So you're really incentivized to shooting 3+ save things like TAC Marines or heavy support squads, and it does really well at that.
Yeah, it's so much better this edition without the Artificer armor.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So the AP3 just kind of deletes squads. So yeah, I really like a glaive. It's coming out soon actually in plastic, so hope to see it more on the table.
Yeah, hopefully it comes out before October so we can see some plastic.
Yep. I'm hoping for a falchion before October. I'd get another one to add to my salamanders. I think the falchion.
Oh, no, Reed, you want that new one from LI with a giant flamer, the flamer falchion from.
Maybe, but if I get a warhound, I'd put one of the Inferno flame cannons on it. So I feel like I'm hitting that niche already. Truthfully, I want a Thunderhawk transporter.
That's fair.
That's the Lord of War that I think is just superior of being able to come on the board and drop off Spartan or something else equivalent.
Yeah,
it's the nesting doll situation. Thunderhawk transporter, Spartan, Terminator Squad.
It's such a cool model. Like,
I just also love the idea of showing up with one of those to kind of play.
You want to style on people. You want to be like, look at this out of production Forge World model that I've had for so long.
Right.
Bow down to my nerdness.
Impractical. I could use it once and then I'll turn it into terrain.
Actually, that's a good. So if you guys, this would actually be a good question to do a poll. What would you prefer to have come in plastic first, a Warhound or a Thunderhawk?
Oh,
Thunderhawk.
Warhound.
I think it's more feasible than a Thunderhawk because the Thunderhawk is going to be a lot of panels.
Stormbird actually, but Thunderhawk will suffice.
Stormboard is too new for Forge World. They won't make it plastic. Thunderhawk's been around forever. Warhound's been around forever. I could see either one of them honestly being in plastic. Although
I think with the flyer rules this edition, a Thunderhawk is a little too impractical. It's so many points for something that you, if you're lucky, will come on twice in a game. Like
we had somebody bring to October a Thunderhawk list where like basically everything in his list. It was a great list that had everything that was not a jump pack was in the Thunderhawk. So his 3,000 point list was the Thunderhawk, everything inside of it, and then whatever else he could fit that didn't need a transport. And yes, he struggled with that. But in LVO at October, we used strategic assets from the Isfahan 5 book, the journal from that. And in the back there, we added on a couple of extra ones. And in this upcoming LVO, we are going to add one that increases the ability to allow flyers to come on more reliably. So that'll be kind of the current. So in before a game, you would match up with your opponent, get nearly set up before deployment, and then you'd make the decision of what kind of strategic assets you would bring. So it's kind of that chess match that you're starting with at the beginning of the game of how you can play asymmetrically. But yes, I'm super excited. I'm hoping the rumors are true that we're going to get a Warhound. Please and thank you, GW. We appreciate it.
We've mentioned it. It's reset the clock, just like squads.
And it happened, Esteban. Don't kick it.
Came back. Yep.
I mean, they did come back, but they came back in
40K. 20 years of us all harping on it.
Where they belong.
Yeah.
40K where they belong.
You don't say that, man. You say that, and then you know what GW? They're going to make a Warhound, but it's going to be specifically only for 40K somehow.
Yeah, it doesn't have weapons.
That's actually something that makes me think why they won't do it, because they really hate these cross game kits. So a Warhound would, the Warhound would.
But the Custodes kit, they straight up were like, yeah, it's 30K, but if you want to use it for 40K, go ahead. I think that was the first time they acknowledged that, like, oh yeah, you can use this for both.
I will say though, it was a weird decision, I think, to take Custodes and be like, all right, but here's your 40K version. Instead of redoing the range entire, including the 40K, they're like, that's the 40K look versus our 30K look. So John, I've always kind of disagreed with you a little bit in like how much they hate they want the separation of systems. I made the argument of like, they use, plenty of kits that are back and forth. But I think you're right that there has definitely been a big push for it. So what they do is they brand it as a Horus Heresy item, and then we get more people to come play with us. I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I mean, it's so stupid that they have to track it this way, but as an old world player, it's bananas because there's no Skaven because Skaven is an AOS, which is
that ain't stopping players at all. Like Geeky Tees, there's like a bunch of Skaven players in our area.
You got a new one right here.
There we go.
Yeah, see, 3 Skaven players,
multiplying.
legacy army, and it still has 3 players in our
If they
area.
bring vampire accounts back to Old World, that's the only thing that'll get me into Old World.
Yeah,
We're
like,
gonna have to
Vampire
expand our
Counts,
channel
yeah.
scope if we all start divesting into these new games.
Yeah,
it's
we'll
multiple.
see about that. Yeah, why don't we wrap it up a little bit? You guys want to do a little hobby update? Reed,
Sure.
What are you working on?
Currently, right now, I've been working on my Skaven a little bit. I've been doing some green stuff and magnetizing bases while we've been discussing. But I wanted to give a big hobby shout out to. I recently met a new group here in Los Angeles that are all people that work in the film industry, which is where I normally work. All of these people are involved in multitude of different departments in the film industry, but they all come together to play Warhammer at a bar nearby, and so. It's been really interesting going there once a month and connecting with them. They're called the Friendly Foes, and they have a lot of new Warhammer players. So I was sitting on Saturday of last week. I was building a Sisters of Battle that I received as a prize. I was building it next to somebody who had never built a model before, and then next to somebody who had just gotten into the hobby. And it was just cool being a part of that. And they're all 40K players, and eventually I'm going to corrupt them all to the wonders of 30K, but that'll be a little bit down the line. But besides that, I've also been looking really into Imperium Maledictus lately. If you guys know anything about that, I've been trying to I'm thinking about running a Warhammer 40K RPG.
That's the tabletop RPG, right? I think it's specifically more mystery based than like combat based, like
Wrath and Glory, very combat based from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Imperium Maledictus seems like a direct inheritor to Dark Heresy.
Ooh, super cool.
So it's a really cool system. But besides that, I've been a little burned out of the Heresy hobby, but I'm getting back to it, baby. I'm back and better than ever and making a lot of shit over here. I've been doing a lot of terrain as well.
Nice.
All right.
Esteban, how about you?
I have been making some slow progress on my Sons of Horus, mostly just painting because painting is the worst aspect for me. But I've kind of been jumping around all across my hobbies. I'm actually right now working on some tarantulas because I think I might be able to make it to LVO this year. So I'm trying to think of what to bring, and I might just bring knights with mech allies if I can't, think of anything else. And I'm building these so I can take Volkite guns to them so I can shore up my anti-infantry. So I'm building 4 of those tarantula guns now.
Hell yeah, brother.
I swear to God, I am actually running Volkites. I'm not going to run all last cannons and be a dick about it.
Well, we're excited to have you at LVO. We've been missing you.
I only missed one. It's only because they did the double LVO year. Terrible move, by the way.
Never again.
Online gaming. Please no double LVO year. I don't have enough off time to do it.
All right, John, you're up. What are you working on?
So I've actually been. So I guess for 30K side, that's been slowing down a bit. I'm building some Saturnine for my Space Wolves, but that's been a slow progress. I've actually been really into just hobbying 40K. I have like a playable army. I'm playing a game with a buddy tomorrow, but I really don't care for the game, but I really enjoy just the models, and I'm kind of, after being more into like Heresy and Old World and AOS the past few years, it kind of almost feels refreshing getting back into 40K and seeing what's up with the lore and stuff. So I've been painting some Primaris Ultramarines. I really like the new Titus model. Calgar looks super cool. And gonna start working on some Red Corsairs with Huron. But yeah, I saw my box set, the Siege box set for Heresy. That's gonna be all Sons of Horus. I think if I don't finish these Terminators for these Saturnine first, I think I'm just gonna work on the Cataphracti so I could run some regular Terminator command squads with my Sons of Horus. I think the LA community is kind of tired of my just stare and just punking shit all the time. So it'll be nice to like run a Terminator unit that doesn't have Vanguard too. Yeah. Speaking of the LA community, wrapping up my 2 slow grow leagues at Geeky Peas and Loaded Dice. So that's been super fun. I think it's super low stakes league. People getting into 3.0 or to Heresy in general. So gonna brainstorm ideas for the next few ones, and I think those will be more ambitious, not just like a quick narrative or a quick 1 month match play game. I think I might introduce more like crazy narrative things, but we'll see.
Cool. How do you think it's been going, John? Do you think people are really they've been keeping up with their games, obviously, and really expanding their hobbies with it?
I think like most leagues, the initial push is way more involved than the end. But we like at Geeky Tees, I still got a good amount of players who, like Randy included, who stuck it out till the end. And a bunch of people had, they look like to have full armies at the end of it, which is super cool. The one in Loaded Dice, that one actually has been fun because it's a bunch of in Loaded Dice games they play a lot of 40k in AOS, so it was kind of cool to see them kind of try Heresy as a palate cleanser, and they've been really enjoying it. So I think they're excited for more. Actually, they've been asking me to do like a mega battle to cap off the league, and I'm trying to fit on my schedule. March is super busy for me, but they're the kinds of gamers that they just love playing tabletop, and they're there every weekend playing some games. So I think one guy has 3 Heresy armies now. He's just a super fast painter. He has demons and world eaters and Sons of Horus, and another guy, I think he played LVO for the first time last year. He played Dark Age. I think he won Best Loyalist actually. So if you remember the guy who got Best Loyalist in LVO, he's playing in Dark Ages player was playing in my Slow Grow League. So yeah, it's cool seeing the Heresy community growing, especially with 3.0. There's a lot of naysayers saying that the game was dying, but maybe it's the case in some communities, but at least in Los Angeles, it's been growing. It hasn't exploded. It's not super. It doesn't match 40k popularity, but still a lot of players starting. So that's been nice.
Yeah, I definitely always find it weird whenever someone is like, "Heresy is dead." I'm like, where do you live? I don't know. I've only seen mostly positive stuff about this edition, and more and more people getting into it, locally for us, and also different places that I've seen around the country and the world. So yeah, overall it seems to be growing, which I think is great.
Yeah, and I think the community is dropping off. Just last word before I stop blabbering is I think it's just more like people just don't like change rather than 3.0 being 3.0. 3.0 could be better than objectively as better as it can be, but shading the game system is still annoying for a lot of folks, which is fair. But yeah, as we said before, 3.0 has been super fun compared to 2.0.
But for the people who've fallen off, I do think we've gotten 3.0 has brought in a lot more new players.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Which I think is more than balanced that out.
I don't think it has brought a lot of new players recently, but I don't think it's as big as the 2.0 rush that we had a couple years back. I feel like the 2.0 was a lot bigger than the 3.0 pull in.
I mean, I think what I see with the leagues I'm running, I think that at Geeky Teasers and Burbank, I think the rush has been similar, but I mean, Loaded Dice, none of them played Heresy until this edition, so just that has kind of expanded that kind of field of players. But
I do think there's an argument as well for when second edition came out, a lot of those vehicles and things like that could be used in 40k. So I think there was a willingness to kind of cross the aisle.
It was also a big deal because Reed, you could speak this to, but 1.0 it was a long edition. Towards the end, it was actually straight up dead. We had no long releases for a year, give or take, and then 2.0 dropped. So it was like, oh man, Horus Heresy, Plastic Mark 6, holy Plastic Spartan, holy shit. So
yeah,
I think that I agree with Esteban. The initial kind of whoa, Horus Heresy Plastic was way bigger in 2.0, but I think in 3.0 it's more like, okay, the game's in a good spot now. 90% of the Liber of the regular Space Marine list is in plastic, so it's in a more stable spot. But definitely didn't have that kind of whoa, holy shit kind of vibe that 2.0 had after 1.0.
Yeah. And actually, John, I've got a question for you, because this is something I noticed because I've been trying to get some of the other stores in the Los Angeles area to get their 30K communities growing. It seems like a lot of people bought 2.0 but never really played it or never really built their stuff. So I don't know if you've seen the same thing at Geeky T specifically. Just an odd thing.
Oh yeah, I actually know. I actually just taught the game to 2 people and who bought things for 2.0, and they just never played until 3. Or they never finished their armies until 3.0 launch. And I was like, oh, I can play now. So I mean, it's also a case for, I think, wargaming in general, at least in Los Angeles, where a lot of people buy stuff, and especially talking to store owners, they see a lot of people buy the product and then they just never play. I think the same happened with Old World, and actually Legions Imperialis is another good example where a lot of people bought it, but no one really, very few people actually built it and are playing games.
Yeah,
I'm guilty of that, unfortunately.
If you don't have community support, it just kind of fades away. Which I think is what happened with Legions Imperialis. There was the initial excitement, but then no follow through.
Yeah,
I think it was more because it released the same time as 2.0 pretty much. So I think the focus, most people wanted to play the regular size 30K instead of smaller 30K.
I think actually, it's funny, 'cause anecdotally, with the people I was talking to who were hyped for LI, actually, I'm part of this. I'm part of this problem. Everyone who was hyped for LI, like, switched to Old World when Old World was announced. Every single one. They were like, "Oh, this is so cool!" But Old World's coming back. This is even more cool. And I was one of those. I paused I actually scrapped my LI army and because I was initially doing Sons of Horus, but I scrapped that because of Old World, and now I have a Dark Mechanicum army when that came out. But yeah, like bad timing, close to the Heresy 2.0 launch, so not a lot of crossover there. But yeah, kind of a fumble by GW with that game.
Yeah, well, they also, I mean, there was that whole issue with they had to reprint their books, and so
Yeah,
they
which delayed it.
released that delayed, and they just from a PR perspective bungled the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, for my hobby, I've been slowly revamping my Thousand Suns to be 3.0 ready. So they'll probably be the Legion that I take to LVO if I can go this year, which I think I'll be able to. Although I've said that every time for the last 2 years and haven't been able to go, but I'm hoping this time is true.
No take back to the side.
Yeah, so I finished Autocannon Heavy Support Squad. I got a Saturnine Praetor. I'm working on a Saturnine Command Squad that I'm trying to source some extra right-handed power fists, which are very difficult to find. And right now I'm working on a Rapier quad launcher squad, which, you know, it's weird that it's taken me like 3+ years to figure this out, but you can cut the eyes off of the Sons of Horus 16 logos to use for 1,000 Suns. I don't know why it's taking me so long to figure that out, but like I have this like light gray that I use on the shoulder pads and like knee pads for some of my guys, and the gold and the white from the 1,000 Suns transfer sheet doesn't read very well on it. And then I was like looking at my like generic transfer sheets that have like the black Legion logos for the Sons of Horus. I'm like, oh shit, I can use this for my 1,000 Suns.
Yeah, numbers are usable.
Yeah. So for any other 1,000 Suns players who have yet to use that hack, cut off the eyes. Legion 15 from 16. There you go. You're welcome.
Yeah, transfers are awesome.
Yeah.
Love them. Give us more.
Yeah, give us more GW.
All right, before we ramble on for too much longer, I feel like that's a good place to call it a night. Thank you everybody so much for listening. Let us know if you have any questions about LVO this year, about the Lord of War restrictions. We'll try to answer them in a future episode. And as always, if you like the podcast and want to support us, like the video, subscribe. It means a lot to us, and we'll catch you on the next one.
See you, everyone.
Thank you.
Adios.